Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
I haven't seen many games where you hit the opponent 14-5 and find a way to lose the game, and it's difficult to take in that regard.
Whether it's kids that I coached as an assistant, kids that I've coached as a head coach, I love them all.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes with you from our studios downtown Columbia. On this Monday afternoon, we roll into another great week of Sports Talk. Hope you had a marvelous weekend with mom, grandmom, anybody else special to you along those lines. Tonight, wide open for your phone calls. For the most part, love to hear from you. 800-956-7266 is the number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @sportstalksc. We'll check out all your various forms of comments, both over the air and online and through email as we go through the program tonight. Plenty to talk about from over the weekend. Clemson with the series victory over NC State. Pat Krall looking like Don Drysdale out there, not physically, but just mowing down people and getting the job done for Clemson. South Carolina having a chance to win its series at Kentucky time and time again yesterday. 15 runners left on base. They just could not come up with the big hit to put that game away or the big hit to win it in extra innings. Josh Reagan gives up the home run. This is an unbelievable stat. I think it's unbelievable. I was looking at it just a little while ago, Pro. Josh Reagan has given up 6 runs all season, each one of them on a solo home run.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'd have to look. I'm sure you'd have to look deep into the stat book to find another situation where a pitcher as effective as he has been. I mean, his ERA is still under 1.5. A pitcher as effective as he has been, all the runs that he has given up coming on solo home runs.
Well, the interesting thing is, obviously, the first thing he has to do is go back and look over the scorebook, see what the count was, and batters kind of guess, well, this guy's all the way around the plate. He likes to throw strikes. Maybe you should start throwing more pitches out of the strike zone. And then maybe
he should watch some of the Braves pitch. That'll help you learn how to throw outside the strike zone.
Well, actually, the Braves pitching has not been that bad. It's their hitting that's been terrible.
Yeah.
But
when you're 1-15 at home, as they are, it's pretty much shared across the board, the blame.
Well, my point is, I think it's great that they're losing at home because guess what? Then the fans will be screaming, "We can't wait to get to the new ballpark."
Or get a new team. I'm
Let's
not sure
get out of here.
The same team, take this same Braves team and put it in the new ballpark. You're still going to be 1-15 at home.
I'm not certain.
You don't think?
Come
on, bro. You believe in too many mythical things. 800-956-7266.
You can't measure the human brain.
Be right back. Yeah, one of those strange baseball seasons to some degree. Every time you think South Carolina is starting to, well, they've been good all year, but you start thinking about them for Omaha, and they lose a series to a team with an inferior record. I know they're playing on the road. The thing about this team, it has not only well on the road. I guess for the trip down to Ole Miss early in the year. Losing a series at Georgia, losing a series at Kentucky, losing a series to Clemson, including a neutral site and one on the road, losing to North Carolina at a neutral site. Take them out of their element at Founders Park, and they're not nearly as strong as they are at home. Now, that might not be a problem for them once they get back from the SEC tournament, because in all likelihood, they'll be playing at home as long as they stay a national top 8 seed. They've got to be careful here, South Carolina does, not to stub its toe down the stretch. You got 3 games against Texas A&M, and if you watch them over the weekend, you saw how good they are, getting a no-hitter thrown over the weekend. Then you got to go to Alabama. So the Gamecocks have got to probably to stay among the national top 8, I would think they've got to win those 2 series. They can't lose 2 more SEC series to stay among the top 8 and put themselves in peril when it comes to a super regional possibly going on the road. You don't want to do that after having hung in there all season long. And then just when you think you're ready to bury Clemson, they turn around and they beat Florida State 2 out of 3, and they beat NC State 2 out of 3, especially after just getting trampled on Saturday by, what was it, 20-3, I think it was. They turn around and find a way to win with Pat Krall going to the mound yesterday and tossing a complete game for the Tigers. So, Clemson doesn't look good enough overall right now to get to Omaha, but you wouldn't count them out because Monty's got them playing hard and playing to the last out and trying to find ways to win games, even though they are a team that's, really deficient in pitching, really porous on defense, but they can hit. They can hit pretty well. They got power in that lineup. So you don't know. You just, it's pretty evident at this point tonight as we talk that any postseason play for the Tigers will be away from Doug Kingsmore. So they're going to have to go on the road and figure out a way to win.
Well, the key point is, let's face it, even at every level of baseball, and you look at the majors and college as well, once you get to where guys have their rotation set and your pitching is there, it never ceases to amaze me how the ball finds your worst fielders. It never ceases to amaze me. And if you give extra outs in the postseason, you're a dead duck. As far as South Carolina is concerned, Kentucky for the last few years has always been a house of horrors when they have to go on the road. The only thing I would question yesterday, and I understand you want to break the game open. However, when I see a guy, it's dangerous, but when I see a guy that's 6'11" on the mound, I want to see him feel a bunt. I want to see him bend down and have to throw at one point. But I can understand why South Carolina was free swinging and thought they had a chance to break the game open in that extra inning when they didn't score with runners on first and third, nobody out. But I wanted to see that pterodactyl get off the mound and try to pick up a bunch.
Kentucky's got a pitching staff that a basketball coach would drool over. I mean, they come at you with one long-legged guy after another. But you're right. Maybe you do drop down a bunt and try and make him come off the mound and make a play. Yeah.
Pitcher. And his name appropriately, Jelly. I think it was.
All right, 800-956-7266, the number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter @sportstalksc. One of the other major stories to pop up since we were last with you on Friday, the commitment on Friday night by Logan Rudolph of Northwestern to Clemson. First in-state commitment for the Tigers after 9 out-of-state commitments. This is an interesting turn of events because in following his recruiting outwardly. It did not appear that Clemson was doing much with him for much of the recruiting process. In fact, early on in talking to him, as he was going through his visits and all that, Clemson, the name hardly ever came up. There was very little contact between the Tigers and him. And then it all just sort of changed. Right about the time, I'm not saying the two are connected, I don't know, but right about the time Kyle Richardson, his coach at Northwestern, went to work for Dabo Swinney, the Tigers upped the ante with him, and he came in for a visit. They offered him. He went back for another visit, and then via a video the other night, he announced his commitment to the Tigers. Now, the other interesting thing here to me was, and this is where fans on the internet, what goes around comes around, and you have to be careful about things that you say. You really shouldn't say anything about high school kids, you adults, to attack high school kids that might not be considering you for some reason, one reason or another. And you go on the internet, you go on a website, and you say disparaging things about them. This was sent to me, and I put it out on Twitter on Friday night. Did not seek it out, but it was sent to me by somebody who had captured it on a screen grab from a Clemson. This is from TigerNet, the most popular Clemson fan website out there for message boards and communicating and all that kind of stuff. And this is coming back in February, and this is from I'm assuming a Clemson fan, based on the information under his name, Joey Tiger. And he writes about the kid back then. Now, remember, back in February, Rudolph wasn't doing much with Clemson and vice versa. He goes, as much as I hate to say this, that kid is dumb as a rock and raised on steroids by a family that wants nothing but to be in the NFL. We don't want him. You think, and then there were follow-ups to that. And then another of the same ilk. This is from G Triple on the TigerNet board. I know people won't like spilled what seems to be bad info on the kid. Me out, this kid is trouble. So I bring this up only to say that on a major Clemson message board where thousands of people read and respond to said post by Clemson fans for the most part, you got people back in February bashing a kid for no good reason other than the fact that they didn't think they were going to get him, or they didn't think they were recruiting him, or whatever the case may be. And now he's committed to them. So how do you feel, G Triple? And how do you feel, other Tiger fan? I mean, it's, you shouldn't even go on the internet and write things about high school kids negatively because they're not coming to your school. That's just bad. That's just a bad, low-down, immature thing to do. And now, these will be the same guys that'll be kissing this kid's feet if he sacks a Gamecock quarterback in a couple of years, kissing his feet and other things, because they'll be drooling all over him.
Well,
the hypocrisy of it all just makes me sick.
Just don't send those notes around him while he's swinging that axe.
Yeah.
Costo, his K-Back and I were talking about it. The form is a little bit off. That axe has to be higher.
Oh, really?
But yeah, Paul Bunyan, the only thing missing in that video was Blue. Blue should have been back there, the old Blue Ox.
Yeah.
Should have been back there where he's chopping.
Look, he's a good-looking athlete. He is, by all accounts, he can play tight end, but they like him for a defensive end or linebacker. Apparently is one of those, he's probably like a Boulware kind of kid in that his motor never stops running. He's all effort all the time. And in this case, he's really about getting after the quarterback and coming off the edge. And he's got good size. And obviously his dad played at North Carolina. His brother's a quarterback at Oklahoma State. So, he comes from great football genes. So it's a great pickup for Clemson. And it also shows the strength of Clemson recruiting right now with where they are, that they can come in on a kid like that and get him turned around in just a matter of 6 weeks or so and get his commitment from, a wide array of major offers from across the country from Power 5 conference teams. All right, 800-956-7266. Back in a moment. Why would you go on a message board as a fan and just trash a high school kid and write things that aren't true about him? What's the mindset of somebody that uses that kind of ability to go on the internet and communicate with other fans of like thinking to do that? I to me, that's the lowest of the low. And you know what? I'm happy for the kid and happy for Clemson that they were able to get somebody that wanted to come to them. I sure hope the kid doesn't see that kind of stuff written about him by the Clemson fans who did that. Hit a home run with Founders Federal Credit Union coming soon to Tiger Town. Founders Clemson location will be open soon. For now, check out the 4 on-campus ATMs. Visit RelaxJoinFounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. All right, let's see what else is going on. 800-956-7266. A lot of honors from the baseball circles today. The ACC Player of the Week is Clemson's Pat Krall as far as the pitcher of the week. And what a week he had. He allowed just 8 hits and 1 run with 13 strikeouts in 16 innings. And he got wins over Florida State and NC State as the Tigers won those 2 series. The Southern Conference honors go to a pair of Furman players, pitcher Will Gaddis and first baseman Deion Sanders. Not spelled the same way, but pronounced the same way. Gaddis had picked up his 5th win, complete game victory over Western Carolina. He's now 8-2 on the season. And Sanders, who also plays football, he hit .571 for the week. He had 3 home runs, a double, and 7 RBIs. Big South Player of the Week, Coastal Carolina outfielder Connor Owings. He was hot. .556 at the plate, pair of doubles and 2 home runs. Coastal swept Liberty over the weekend. So the polls for this week, South Carolina not overly damaged by losing 2 of 3 at Kentucky. They fall to number 9 by D1 baseball. Florida is number 1 ahead of Texas A&M, then Miami. Mississippi State is 4, Florida State 5. Then it's Louisville, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, USC, and NC State. Coastal Carolina is 20 by D1. Baseball America, USC drops 2 to number 8. Again, Florida is 1, Texas A&M is 2. Clemson is 23, Baseball America. In the coaches poll, it's USC dropping 1 spot to number 8. And Coastal Carolina is 23, and Clemson is 24. Again, Florida, the number 1 team in that ranking. So Florida pretty much getting the nod across the board from the baseball analysts as the number 1 team in the country. And this sets up another huge weekend for South Carolina with Texas A&M coming to town. Again, number 2 against a top 10 USC team. Between now and then, the Gamecocks will play Presbyterian tomorrow night. Clemson opens a 2-game series against the College of Charleston, Monty Lee's old team, tomorrow night. Then they go to Georgia Southern for the weekend. Spending the weekend in beautiful Statesboro. We'll be right back. we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes from our studios in downtown Columbia. 800-956-7266, the number. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. On Twitter @sportstalksc. The website is sportstalksc.com, and on Facebook. Like us there at Sports Talk Radio Network. The poll question of the week: what is the must-win game this football season for USC? I know it's hard to pick out one of 12 or 13, or if you dream big, 14, or if you're on drugs, 15 for South Carolina. I'm talking about the 12 regular season games. What is the win that would be signature for Will Muschamp and company? Would it be, and I didn't list all 12 games. I selected some games that I think would fall into the category of marquee. Would it be the opener against Vanderbilt? Would it be Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Clemson, or a bowl game, if applicable? So far, you look stunned there, Pro. So far, a lot of folks have responded. 51.5% say the must-win game this season for USC is Vanderbilt. Got to win the first one. You can't get to 2-0 unless you're 1-0. So you got to win the first one. 19% and say Clemson. 12.6% say Georgia. 11% say Tennessee. 2.9% say a bowl game if they make it. And they make a bowl game. You know, it'd be, if South Carolina were to make a bowl game, obviously it'd be huge for them to win. There'd be 5 straight bowl wins for the school, which is something they can brag about. But getting to a bowl with this team in the transition year to a new coaching staff, winning would be icing on the cake because no one expects them to get to a bowl. If they get to a bowl, that's sort of a victory in and of itself for the season. Then you get the win, that's icing on the cake. It gives you 5 in a row. You can brag about that. But so far, 51% say winning that first game, getting off to that 1-0 start would be the win of the season.
Well, see, that's not the win, because suppose you win that game and then lose the rest of it. So
that becomes the win. It's the win of the season.
That would be the only
becomes the only win of the season.
Yeah, I'm with the fans that is the important win, because I think obviously when people look at a team, they look at interchangeable parts like their computers. I don't do that. Mm-hmm. I know that the mental attitude of a team has a lot to do with it winning. That's why you have the previous coach at Vandy. Yeah, he had a few more pieces, but for what other reason? Is he Elmer Gantry or Preacher or whatever? He had that team playing like they could win every football game. Mm-hmm. And that was a mental thing. South Carolina, let's face it, last year, if you look at them and you think about if they'd have had consistent quarterback play, maybe they'd win 2 or 3 more games, or maybe a fumble. And you could see where their attitudes deflated when they gave the game at Tennessee and they sleptwalked through Citadel. You know, no disrespect to the Citadel, but they sleptwalked through that team. So I think I agree with the fans. If you're going to start off the season, start it off with a win on the road. But I will say this, here's the advantage that South Carolina has from a mental standpoint that many teams in the SEC coming up next year don't have. And that is, nobody expects anything out of you. So now you go out there and you prove, well, we're going to show some people, and you'd be surprised how that fuels some football players. And when people don't think you can do something. Plus, as opposed to the pressure that Tennessee now faces, and they folded under it last year, you're the favorite. And watch it.
Plus, think about that. And you're right. That's an excellent point. The other thing, too, is when you're going to be young like they are and inexperienced in a lot of places and overlooked by everybody, you win a couple of games and get that confidence going. You start believing you're better than you actually are. You start playing at a higher level. Then you line up and play a much better team. You might upset them. You might play them to the wire, whatever the case may be. If they can get off to that relatively good start early on with a win at Vanderbilt. I don't know if they can go to Mississippi State and win. Mississippi State's got its question marks as well, but the Gamecocks, they open up by going to Vandy, which I think is a great place for them to open the season. Though Vandy early in the year, historically speaking, while they're still healthy, they have proven that they can be a tough out, especially at home. But they're still Vandy, and I still think even South Carolina going through what it's going through has more overall talent than Vanderbilt does. Then you go to Mississippi State. If they can come out of those first two games 1-1, take care of business at home against East Carolina 2-1, then, to have a really good year, you're going to have to beat somebody on the road. Kentucky could be that team besides Vanderbilt. That'd give you 2 road wins in the SEC before you're out of the month of September. And then, you just sort of let it roll from there. You look at, if that were to be the case, if they were 3-1 coming out of September, you look at what's ahead. Texas A&M and Georgia at home, maybe you can split with those, give you 4 wins right there. You beat UMass, that's 5 wins. You beat Missouri is 6. You beat Western Carolina, that's 7 wins. And you still got Clemson, Florida, Tennessee in there. But you could get I can see 7 legitimate possible wins on the schedule based on what I'm hearing about the team coming out of spring and the way the coaches are talking. I don't think Muschamp just blowing smoke out there to try to sell tickets. I believe that he believes from what he saw in the spring that they're not nearly as bad overall as perceived. Now, there are some bad parts on the team, but like the secondary, but they've got, perhaps maybe the, King coming in from the junior college, maybe if they get J.C. Jackson in as well, all of a sudden your corners go from being very suspect to being very good. And that changes everything.
And not only that, let's face it, what they played last year was very passive. And what I try to do is when people say your corners are no good, well, when you look at who recruited them other than South Carolina, well, wait a minute, how did they turn bad all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm. That has been the thing that has kind of blown my mind about their secondary, because you look at Lamons and you look at DJ Smith, you look at Wesley Green, who's no longer there. I mean, with his background, his recruiting activities, he should have stepped right in and been a big-time player for him. There have been 3 or 4 come through there that leaves you scratching your head as to why are these guys not better or playing better.
Well, I think probably one of the keys is they haven't gotten their arrogance yet. And what I mean by that is if you get burned, everybody gets burned. Mm-hmm. Shake it off and go. There's a domino effect when you don't have confidence. When you get burned that first time, you look around and wait for the second time. Lo and behold, you find yourself out of place. Then you get burned. So the dominoes fall where you're not confident to make a play. People got to remember, as good as South Carolina was in those 3 years, they won 11 ball games. They had to pull out some nail biters, and they pulled them out. Did they do it with talent? Yes. However, when they came down the field, they were confident they were going to make a play. And that team last year had no confidence they could make a play.
Keep in mind, too, when South Carolina was winning 11 games, I mean, you had the premier play caller in college football running your offense. When Spurrier was into it and he was rolling, I mean, you always had a feeling that offensively he was going to make the right call. He was going to get them down the field or get them in position to score more often than not. He didn't have that feeling in his last year, but in those 3 11-win years, you kind of felt like Spurrier was going to do his thing on offense and no defensive coordinator could stop him.
I got a feeling that some of his calls didn't work, but Connor Shaw's legs worked out.
Well, this is true now. And that's the kind of quarterback they hope they'll have possibly in Brandon McElwain moving forward. Back in a moment. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a Monday night from Columbia. Phil Kornblut and the Professor Tom Hayes. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Give you recruiting here coming up in just a couple of minutes. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Some other of the major stories of the day to pass along to you. Canyon Barry played at College of Charleston. Will play his last year at Florida as a transfer graduate student. I don't know. I tell you, on the one hand, I hear people say, you know, a kid, he's given the school 3-4 years. He should be free to go wherever he wants to play that last year. Maybe it's just a chance for more playing time or play under a different system, help his pro potential. I don't know. I saw where, you know, what was it? Last year, UNC Asheville had this really big-time guard, remember him, and dominated the Big South. He left. I think he ended up where? NC State, possibly? I see, again, where UNC Asheville is losing a top player. So the point is, you know, like Robert Morris has lost top players. So you recruit these guys. They're not heralded. They come into your mid-major program. All of a sudden, they take off and start playing, you know, great basketball and maybe are the best player in their particular mid-major league. And, you know, the big schools start dropping the crumbs to them. Maybe they get that desire to want to play in the ACC or the SEC. And all that time and effort that the coaching staff of that mid-major school has put into A, recruiting, and B, developing this player, he's gone. You know, and they're left holding the bag with a much weaker team. And all of a sudden, you know, coach over here goes, wait a minute, you're my ticket to the NCAA tournament. I don't know if it's the idea of the rule was one thing. The intent was one thing, but like everything in college sports, it's getting abused. You know, it's getting just like the satellite camp thing now. You know, you're seeing that cropping up all over the place. I see where Mercer is going to have a satellite camp, and you know, coaches from all different major colleges are going to be coming in there. And, you know, the idea, I guess, is to, I don't know what the idea is. Is the idea to work with the players to try to make them better players, or is the idea to kind of secretly recruit while you're there? Is that going to be in the back of the minds of every one of these coaches when they go to these camps is, hey, you know, I'm going to try and get me a few guys. I mean, look, and I don't blame them if that's the case, because that's what they're paid to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a possibility, and let's face it, they're looking for talent anywhere they can find it. And the interesting thing is, if you go to these satellite camps, those talent, the unheralded talent is no more, because you've turned over every rock you can find to find a talent. Now, the one key point is, are those evaluators that can look at a kid that's 180 pounds and can think down the road in 3 years he's going to be 230 and a dynamite outside linebacker. That takes an extreme talent to figure that out. But a lot of coaches have been able to do that depending on where they work. You know, if you're at Kansas State, you're not going to get the same athlete that the University of Texas gets. Oregon State is a team that loves to go into Texas, always has, because they just don't have the talent in the Pacific Northwest, and it's hard to get California kids to go up to the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. So they mine in Texas.
I think about Deshaun Murray, for example, who came out of North Carolina. He goes to Presbyterian, and he develops under Greg Nybert and the staff, and he emerges as the best player, one of the best players. Maybe John Brown at High Point is the best. Now, why didn't John Brown decide to leave High Point? He stayed there all 4 years. But anyway,
he liked High Point.
Well, I mean, he could be the best player in that league. Now, Deshaun Murray, you know, had a great year this past year at Presbyterian, and decides to leave, and he's going to go to Auburn, and he has to sit out a year. He's not a graduate guy.
That's correct.
We're talking about. We're not even talking about graduate guys. We're talking about guys you're going to have to, right in the middle of your career, you're going to say stop. And you're not going to play any games, and you're going to have to sit out the year. South Carolina's benefiting from it, you know, getting the kid from Delaware. Clemson's certainly benefiting from it because, you know, they have two guys who've been sitting out, and a third who came in who will be eligible midterm. I mean, they're truly going to benefit from that next year. So I don't know. I think that we're creating a whole nother Well, you see how many transfers there were in college basketball this year, over 500. Over 500 transfers in major college basketball this year. And I mean, and the NCAA is just going to sit back and throw its hands up and say, we can't. This is what boggles my mind. This is an organization, as we all know, would penalize a school if a kid got a hot dog from a fan walking through the parking lot going to a game, yet they can't do anything about 500 or more transfers, and they can't look at that and see that they've got a problem. That's why it's just a joke of an organization that it runs such an important industry, and it's a joke of an organization. Be right back. And we're back at Sports Talk, presented by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. To the recruiting report for tonight, of course, the big news from over the weekend, late Friday night, defensive end Logan Rudolph, 6'4", 225 of Northwestern, commits to Clemson. He's the first in-state commitment for the Tigers. Their first 9 were from out of the state. As late as February 22nd, he had not heard from Clemson since going there for the Wake Forest game last season. And as I mentioned earlier, all that seemed to change when his coach went to Clemson to work on Dabo Swinney's staff, though that not necessarily was the absolute reason for him going to Clemson. The Tigers are getting a guy, according to his coach, whose motor runs hard all the time. A lot of will and drive and speed off the ball. That's coming from his coach, David Pierce. He's going to join us, by the way, in the next half hour to talk more about Logan Rudolph, who had 60 tackles, 15 sacks, and 13 quarterback pressures last season. USC is still very much in the hunt with offensive lineman Carter Warren, 6'3", 324, Passaic, New Jersey. He's got a good relationship, he said, with Sean Elliott. They want him to come down for a visit this summer and check things out. And he says he likes USC's offensive line, the way Sean Elliott runs things. He also has offers from Miami and Michigan and Maryland, Penn State, Kentucky, Rutgers, Michigan State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and Tennessee. His regular contact is coming from the Gamecocks, North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia Tech, Rutgers, Michigan, and Pittsburgh. And he has taken visits to Penn State, Rutgers, Pittsburgh, Temple, Maryland, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse this spring. No favorites at this point. Defensive back Tank Robinson of Lake Marion unveiled a top 10 on Saturday. In no order: USC, Clemson, Ole Miss, NC State, Michigan, Alabama, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. Clemson offered 2018 defensive back Atanza Vonger of South Grand Prairie, Texas. Clemson target defensive end Jordan Williams was offered by Alabama. Dutch Fork receiver Austin Connor qualified for the state championship track meet in the 100 and 200 meters in the 4x400 relay. Athlete Tansy Richardson of South Aiken planning to make his decision soon. He says Colorado State is recruiting the hardest and currently leads, and he said USC is coming to watch him practice tomorrow. In basketball, 6'8", Keanu Pender, Hutchinson Junior College, Kansas, was at USC over the weekend. He left Columbia for an official visit to Arizona. South Carolina State signed 6'7", Damani Applewhite. He's out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He averaged 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists per game last season. And USC in basketball offered a 6'10" player from Anchorage, Alaska, Brandon Huffman. He goes to school in North Carolina, I think in the Fayetteville area. South Carolina, the latest to offer him. He's a pretty highly regarded recruit for 2017. Top of the hour break, and we'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Monday night from Columbia. Phil Kornbluth and the Professor Tom Hayes with you. Coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to learn more about Logan Rudolph, defensive end from Northwestern, who committed to Clemson. His coach, David Pierce, who's the new head coach there. He took over when Kyle Richardson left to go to Clemson, but he is a longtime assistant coach with the Trojans. He'll join us to tell us more about Logan and the kind of player that Clemson is getting in him. A couple of other recruiting notes I was not able to mention before the break. Back to football, USC today offered 2018 running back Cameron Davis of Miami, currently committed to Oregon State. And in basketball, 2018 6'6" Zion Williams of Spartanburg Day picked up an offer from Maryland. So the kid's getting a ton. Williams' son. Did I say Williams? Williams' son picked up an offer from Maryland. Heavily recruited player in the 2018 class, Zion Williamson from Spartanburg Day. Don't call it Spartanburg Country Day, as I was told by readers.
Okay.
Spartanburg, they dropped the country part
a
while back. Spartanburg Day. A couple of other things to mention to you before we get to Coach here coming up after the break. Furman will open its 2016 football season, of course, at Michigan State on a Friday night, September 2nd. That game's been picked up by the Big Ten Network. The kickoff will be at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Good luck with that, Paladins. Charleston Southern announced its football schedule today. Of course, they'll open up on ESPN at North Dakota State August 27th, the first game of the season, anywhere. Then Kentucky State at home on September 3rd. Then on September 10th, they go to Florida State. Then they go to Monmouth. Then they go to Coastal Carolina. Very tough stretch right there. Home game October 8th against Albany State. Then a week off. Then Presbyterian at home. Bucknell at home. Gardner-Webb at home. November 12th at Liberty. They finish up at home with Kennesaw State. So it's good to see, as Coach Chadwell had told us, they're still going to, at least this year, play Coastal Carolina. You were telling me about a problem that Coastal Carolina's having getting state support for expanding its stadium?
The go-ahead, the Commission on Higher Education, they usually have to give a nod. If they think your project is feasible, let's go with it. I think the initial stadium upgrade price tag was $38 million. Coastal came back and said, look, we've lowered that to $29 million. Commission on Higher Education late last week said, wait a minute, still not enough private upfront money for us to give you the go-ahead on that. The next meeting they can have with them is in June. They
must be going with the single bathroom concept to save that $9 million. That'd be my guess. That's how you can save money. Back in a moment. All right, one of the big stories of the last couple of days, the commitment of Logan Rudolph from Northwestern to Clemson, defensive end, 6'4", 225. First in-state commitment for the Tigers. His coach is David Pierce, and he joins us here on Sports Talk. Coach, good evening. How are you?
How you doing, Phil? Nice to hear from you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Did you guys have a practice today?
We did. We were outside today on the field and got after it.
Yeah, how'd it go?
It went pretty good. Pretty tough 20 periods, and I thought everybody had a great day.
It just feels good to talk about actual on-the-field football here in May. We don't do that a whole lot. What kind of things did you work on?
Today, emphasizing tackling, talking about feet. It's first day in pads, so we had to explain some of the new rules in South Carolina about 90 minutes of contact. Had to teach the kids what thud meant and talk to them about what it meant to go live and what it meant to keep up and protect their players. So you had some instruction time. We did a lot of some 11-on-11 stuff, trying to get as many groups of kids on film as possible, trying to evaluate all of our people. But the kids really got after it, and my assistant coaches, they're 100 miles an hour. It's really kind of humbles me to watch practice sometimes.
Yeah, and a different view from you now from the head coaching seat versus, I guess you go up on the tower now. You don't hang out there at one particular position?
No, sir. I've not graduated to the tower yet. I believe that's in year 4. In my first day, I've told this joke, and some people said, man, you might not want to talk about that. I said, I spent 31 years as a position coach. I was Logan's position coach last year as the defensive line coach. And my first day of spring, I didn't know where to stand.
Huh.
And I'd made a commitment that, my OC and my DC, they know what they're doing. They're a great bunch of guys, and they can run a practice. And, we create the practice schedule based on what we need. And as soon as the practice schedule is set, we're smooth as peanut butter and jelly. We're gonna move right along with it. So first practice, I'm getting drinks of water. I'm talking to the trainer. I don't really know where to stand in the field. And I want to go over there and take over a position and start coaching, but
yeah,
it's an adjustment for me that I'm learning about.
Yeah. Well, you'll hear from all those coaches in the stands once the season starts, and they'll tell you where to stand.
Oh yeah,
depending on how the game is going. Yeah,
I understand.
Now to Logan, I've heard nothing but terrific things about him as a player throughout this entire process. And I guess the number one thing about him is his effort level. It's just that the bar is very high for him in terms of one of those effort guys.
Oh, yes. He's got what we call a motor. He's got a motor that doesn't have an off switch. He's 100 miles an hour. You've heard the old cliche about running to the wall, the killer run to a wall for it. He does not realize the wall hurts. He could care less. But I believe we tell our kids the effort will get you noticed. And we believe that's what the colleges were recognizing in Logan Rudolph, because he gives a lot of effort, and his speed off the ball is pretty incredible. So I believe that's what they're looking at.
What do you like about his technique? What techniques will he employ in rushing the quarterback?
Well, when you talk about speed off the ball, his first year as a defensive lineman, the learning curve is pretty steep as far as, playing the down block, playing the reach block, learning the trap. He was a prime target for the trap. I think we got him schooled up on that. But as far as pass rush, his first 3 steps off the ball are pretty quick. And then once he gets on top of you, gets hands on you, he's got some pretty good moves as far as, run the long arm and going underneath. And we really kind of set him loose. On down and distance, here at Northwestern, we let him do his thing. We don't give him a whole lot of things to do. He's a one data point guy. Go get that quarterback. And that's how we utilize it.
Do you play him standing up or with his hand down, or both?
We play him whatever he thinks fastest.
Yeah.
We don't. I'm not gonna take a scheme and say this is what it looks like in the book. I'm gonna say, this is down and distance. This is the situation, and this is what you need to do, and you do what's fastest for you. And he knows. I mean, we're not talking about freelancing. We teach it. Our people teach the best skills that we can convey to a kid. So he's been taught how to do these things.
Can you compare him to any recent defensive ends to come out of the town of Rock Hill? And you kind of know who I'm talking about there. And anything comparable between Rudolph and Clowney in terms of the way they get after the quarterback?
Well, yeah, it's the speed and effort. I had the blessing and the opportunity to watch Clowney play here here in the city of Rock Hill, and coming off that ball, and he's 2 steps behind. A tackle's going to go 2 vert or 4 vert. He better get on his horse and get back quick, because the edge is going to be shut down really fast. And that was the amazing thing about watching Clowney play. And then his effort after things break apart. I've more than once I've watched a 6'6" kid sprint, 80 yards across the field to make a tackle. And that's the type of effort. And that would be the comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, and they both live 8 miles apart in the city called, Football City, USA.
Yeah.
Well, we were looking at his video when he announced for Clemson swinging the axe. Boy, he looks like
I was not consulted on that.
Oh, okay.
I had no part in the creation nor distribution of said video.
You didn't choreograph that or anything, huh?
No, sir, I did not.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is he looks like a defensive end, but he also looks like a tight end. You talked about his nonstop motor. Is he the kind of exceptional kid that could twist a head coach's arm at the next level and say, "Coach, let me go in there and catch a few passes at tight end while I'm playing defensive end"?
He's the type of kid who can do it. I mean, he started off his 9th and 10th grade year as a wide receiver. His 9th grade year, his brother Mason was throwing to him. But can you twist Dabo's arm? I don't know. That'd probably be a question for Dabo.
Yeah, that family. I mean, his dad played football at North Carolina. Brother is stud quarterback at Oklahoma State. Now he's got the genes and he's got the background. I guess he comes to you, or when he came to you guys, he was well schooled in the fine art of football.
I believe when he came to Northwestern High School, I think he had a love for playing the game of football. And I think, that goes right back to his motor and his attitude. We never worried about, do we have to get Logan to show up? Do we have to get Logan motivated to play football?
Mm-hmm.
So he came here as a lover of the game of football. And, yes, he did bring a football spirit, so to speak, to the game. But yeah, I mean, the line there is pretty good as far as, I think his dad was a parade All-American at the University of North Carolina,
yeah,
linebacker. And of course, brother has a rocket for an arm. And I don't blame his brother for making the video, though. I think it was his idea.
Yeah, yeah. Did it surprise you? I mean, I know as the coach, you kind of knew what was happening behind the scenes, but as late February, he hadn't heard very much from Clemson since he went there for a game last season, and then the coaching move takes place and things start to happen. Did it surprise you that things started moving towards Clemson over the past 6 weeks?
No, it didn't really surprise me. I believe Clemson was in the mix from the beginning. Most in-school people, from my experience, and I'm not a recruiting expert by any, but most in-school people sort of take their time because they have the ability to go put eyes on. And Northwestern High School, our program is not, the recruiting process is not foreign to us. And all the early offers and all those kind of things that has nothing to do with Clemson or Carolina being late to the game. It just has to be sort of the way it goes. Once you get an offer from place A, B, and C, then you're going to get D, F, and G just because the other people offered you, sight unseen. And I believe our in-school people do a great job evaluating talent. So I wouldn't say Clemson was late to the game. I think they were right on time.
All right. Hey, we congratulate you guys. It's always wonderful when you produce a player who gets a great list of offers as he did, and enjoy the rest of spring practice. Look forward to following you guys this season.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Coach. We appreciate it very much. David Pierce, head coach at Northwestern High School. Logan Rudolph headed to Clemson. Be right back. And once again, thanks to Coach David Pierce for being with us here on Sports Talk tonight, and good luck to him and the Trojans and Logan Rudolph as they embark on another season here coming up in just a couple of months. Rather say a few weeks. It's not quite a few weeks. We're not close enough yet to say a few weeks. We're still in that couple of months away sort of deal. Though, here it is about the middle of May. Tomorrow's May 10th. All right, so we're in the double figures in May already. So we are May 11th is Wednesday. So we're 2 months away as of Wednesday from SEC Media Day, which is July 11th.
Well, this is the time that football players are made. When that sun gets hot, they're out there running, lifting. I'll never forget that time my dad walked area near our house, and he said, I could swear I just saw a building with legs. I really did. The guy he saw jogging, because he married a lady from Denmark, South Carolina, was Art Shell.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was still playing with the Raiders at the time and was running out the heat of Denmark, South Carolina, because he was trying to stay in shape.
Yeah. Another offer has gone out tonight by USC. It is to a 2019 prospect, Daniel Carter, linebacker from Fort Lauderdale, St. Thomas Aquinas. Another early offer going out by the Gamecocks. The preseason ranking by, well, not necessarily by Sports Illustrated. Well, he's not with Sports Illustrated anymore. I'm sorry. Not by Fox Sports, but by Stuart Mandel from Fox Sports. He has put together his way too early preseason top 25. But you know what? What is way too early in college sports anymore? Nothing is way too early. So Alabama, he ranks number 1. And why not? It doesn't matter who they lose. It's who they have coming back and who they have coming in. Florida State, he ranks number 2. DeAndre Francois, expected to be their starting quarterback. Clemson at number 3. I don't know how you rank Florida State ahead of Clemson when you just look at the quarterback position and the other talent that Clemson has all over the place. I'd have to rank them highest since they're in state, but I'd have to rank them number 1. I would.
Okay.
I would. I mean, you say Alabama. Who's got the better quarterback, Alabama or Clemson? Who's got the better running backs? I'd say it's probably a wash at running back. Receivers, who's got the better? I know Alabama has a great receiver, that the freshman from last year who'll be a sophomore this year, Calvin Ridley. I know he'll be great next year. And but Clemson, look at Mike Williams, Artavis, on down the list. The tight end, Jordan Leggett. And then defensively, Clemson matches up with Alabama defensively. And who do you want coaching head-to-head? You want Dabo or you want Saban?
It's the numbers. I think a great quarterback.
Do you dare say
because he coaches
Dabo over
defense,
Saban as a coach? Would you take Dabo over Saban as a coach?
If he was 10 years younger. But he's not. He's in his 60s now.
So you're confusing me. You would take –
I would take Dabo.
Hang on.
Dabo was at his zenith.
We continue with Sports Talk here on a Monday night from downtown Columbia, Main Street. We are the Sports Talk show of Main Street, South Carolina, from the coast to the mountains every night from 6 to 8. Appreciate you being with us. 800-956-7266. So you were talking as we were going into the break, and you made some comment about somebody being 10 years younger. The question is simply, the Alabama, Clemson, all things being equal now, I guess 100% of the people would nod coaching-wise head-to-head against Dabo. But, I mean, you can't look at Dabo as a coach standing alone. You got to look at Dabo and his staff because, he doles out so much responsibility to his staff members and his coordinators to run their respective units. While Saban might be different. Yeah.
He sets the tone. It's like Bear Bryant used to say, I don't coach as much as I used to. I got up in years. My coaches coach. They know how to coach, but I know how to win. That's Dabo. I think he sets the tone from a psychological standpoint, an effort standpoint, and he's hungry. See, I always go for the hungry coach. I know the one who wins all the time, but
what's the bottom of Saban's stomach then? I mean, he still with all the championships he's won, he still seems to be hungry to win the next.
That's because he's never satisfied.
Does he have the ghost of Babe? They have the ghost of Bear, breathing on the back of his neck there to keep him humble there at Alabama?
I don't think it's a humble. I think he's a machine. I don't think he knows what day it is. He just wants to know when the next game is. Remember when he said, what was a great comment when he said, Coach, why don't you smile? One more game to go. One more game to go.
All right, the rest of the ranking here. Clemson 3, LSU 4, Michigan 5, TCU 6, Oklahoma 7, Tennessee 8, Ohio State 9, and Ole Miss 10. Stanford 11. Then Baylor, Notre Dame, Houston, Michigan State, Washington, Georgia, North Carolina, Washington State, Louisville at 20, Southern Cal, Oregon, Florida, Iowa, Texas A&M round out the top 25. One other quick note I want to mention here, a lot of talk right now in the Big 12 about expansion, especially the folks at Oklahoma seem to be split. The president wants to move towards expansion. The people that run the board there and run the school, the most powerful members there, they don't believe expanding the league is the way to go, especially when you look at the pool of candidates: Boise State, BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, UConn, Houston, Memphis, South Florida. None of those are exciting. But I bring this up because the main man there at Oklahoma is a 76-year-old powerful person in Oklahoma by the name of Max Weitenshofer. And, he's trying to convince the president, David Boren, to give up on that idea. But he made this comment very end of this story. He goes, might be Weitzenhofer. He says he's an old school football fan, preferring the old bowl system ruled by the human polls. Quote, based on what happened to us in the Orange Bowl, even if we won that game, we would not be able to field a team that week. Our quarterback, I was on the sidelines, was totally out of it. Our running backs were finished. I just think a playoff also added another element of risk. I bring that up, because they were playing Clemson in the Orange Bowl. Apparently, Clemson's defense beat up those Oklahoma players. All right, to the phones we go to Tony in Myrtle Beach. Tony, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Good, guys. How you doing tonight?
Doing well.
I just want to ask one question. With this new regime change in Carolina, and what Dabo went through, losing 5 in a row to Carolina, and Clemson stayed the course, are Carolina fans and is Carolina willing to stay the course with Muschamp with similar results to get to the point where Clemson is now? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, do you think – you obviously think Clemson fans were patient with Dabo as they were losing the 5 in a row?
Well, I think the voice was loud that people were growing tired of losing to Carolina, and They had Boyd and they had Sammy Watkins. They just couldn't seem to get over the hump. Then they got ran out of the building by West Virginia and the Orange Bowl. And I think the grumblings were starting, but Clemson stayed the course. And they gave an extension, and Carolina fans laughed at it. But look where they are now.
Yeah.
Are we willing, as Carolina fans, as Carolina's known and notorious for pulling the string on a coach, when the fans get disgruntled, are we willing to stay the course?
I think, let me put it this way. I think you better. I don't think you could have hired a guy who knows the Southeastern Conference as good as Muschamp is. And what other coach? I can't think, there's probably, 100 coaches that could do it. But I have never seen in my lifetime see a coach come into any school, for that matter, and put together the staff he has with the pedigree it has. I've never seen it. Now, if his organization skills are that good and he knows how to do things, and we've seen the energy in recruiting, you almost have to stay the course because you could tell that the foundation is being laid. Now, the patient factor, I agree with you. I think the one thing I kind of hate about this society we have now, nobody realizes that it takes time for anything. And I think Clemson showed, I think Terry Don Phillips really stuck his neck out early and said, this is the guy. And he got the Clemson higher ups to buy in and say, let's stay the course on this. And coaches around the country, the players see that there's some stability there, and then they start to come to you, especially if you start to win. And that's the key. And I thought the hump for Clemson is not only beating South Carolina, but getting Florida State out of the way. I thought that was a big key for them also.
And also you have to consider, too, that Ray Tanner is going to go the extra mile here because this is his hire.
Yes.
And athletic directors are connected to their football hires at the hip, at the heart, and at the brain. And he's going to give Muschamp every opportunity and everything he needs to be successful. And to be quite honest with you, looking at the staff and looking at what they're doing and looking at how they are assisting the staff, the administration is, I don't see any way they will fail. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're going to win SEC championships galore, but I think they're going to build a very competitive, very strong football team that will have its chance over the next 3 or 4 years to win big games and to be in big games in October and November, meaningful games. Might not happen this year, might start to turn in year 2, and then moving on from there, with guys they've got coming in, if guys like Jake Bentley and the young guys already in the program and the guys they're recruiting now that they're in good shape with, that's no reason why be a competitive football team in a not too distant future.
Well, I hope so. I hope that
unless
I'm fans are patient and realize the job he's got to do.
Unless I'm totally wrong, which is rare, and misreading this thing. I'm not going to use the old slogan "too big to fail," because obviously, any program can fail at some point in time. But Muschamp is a sharp cookie. I mean, people want to knock him for what happened in Florida and say, "Well, you couldn't win at Florida. What makes you think you could win at South Carolina?" He's probably not going to be the same coach he was 5-6 years ago. He's older. He's been through the ringer. He realizes whatever mistakes he made at Florida, he won't make them at South Carolina. And I think too, I don't know his staff, what his staff was at Florida, but this staff seems to be a staff full of Will Muschamp supporters. And you have to have that as a young coach. One thing Dabo did was surround himself with coaches who were loyal to him. I think Will Muschamp has done the same thing with this coaching staff, guys who are loyal to him. Now, can he hold them together as long as Dabo has held his staff together, which is extremely important, of course, when it comes to recruiting? We'll be right back.
Information. Information. Information.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. A couple of quick notes and back to your phone calls. Jerron Blossom game. Still no decision from him yet today. Working out for the Hawks. Of course, the Hawks had plenty of time on their hands after getting swept by Cleveland. Let's see. Hang on a second. I misread that. He was working out in Atlanta today with Cleveland. Okay. Today is the 9th, right? Yeah.
That is correct.
All right. So today he was scheduled to work out in Atlanta with Cleveland. Must be one of those satellite workouts. Combine the 10th through the 15th. Then he's going to work out with either Memphis or Chicago on the 16th, the Clippers on the 18th, the Lakers on the 19th. So he's still going through that process. ACC spring meetings start this week down in Amelia Island. You ever notice how these leagues have their spring meetings at such expensive, exotic, 5-star locations? I mean, they would never come to, say, Denmark and have their spring meeting, or Oler, or any place like that.
Hotel space.
They plenty of place out there.
Motel 6.
On I-95. Anyway, possible TV network expected to be one of the issues. Also, time demands facing the athletes, another. ACC's been studying the viability of creating its own network, similar to what SEC, Big Ten, Pac-12 have.
Not a good time to do that right now.
There is a clause in the league's current deal with ESPN where the network would have to pay the ACC $45 million if there's not an agreement in place by July 1st. With ESPN reportedly losing millions of subscribers. No, that's not reportedly. They are. Over the past few years, not to mention great talent departing the network. And the network forced to make some cost-cutting maneuvers. The questions that will be discussed this week is whether this is the right time for a new conference
that's what
network.
I was telling you. I didn't think it was the right time.
About to bleed that goose dry. Congratulations to Alsteva Squirewell from Newberry. Has been signed by the Packers, undrafted free agent contract. He earned it going through rookie orientation camp this past weekend. That's great. Now, just going to say.
Don't do it.
Last time we signed somebody from Newberry.
Don't do it.
You know what happened? Why didn't he just block? All he had to do was do his job, and we'd all be happy. He'd still be with the Packers. He'd probably have a Super Bowl ring. But no, we had to try to be a hero. And now you're on the Jets practice squad, Brandon Bostic. And you were a stud with the Packers.
He's a
anyway, congratulations to Alsteva Squirewell for getting a contract. Let's go back to your phone calls. And it's John in Columbia up next here on Sports Talk. Hello, John.
What's going on, buddy?
How you doing, sir?
Man, good. I think a couple of things real quick. I didn't call to get to the Clemson thing that you were talking with him about earlier, but, man, there's no way. Alabama's too deep everywhere, and all those defensive backs they lost there, no way. And even put Dabo in the same breath with Saban is just a joke. But anyway, that isn't what I called. The reason I called was the guy that just called in about Carolina and if they'd hang with Muschamp. Two things a lot of people need to realize here, and obviously I know that you know this, but number one, when after Herman, that deal fell through, and then Kirby, Georgia jumped on Kirby because he was the next guy. Half of our staff was going to come, including Muschamp as the D coordinator. All those guys were coming with Kirby to Carolina. And the funny thing about it is that they all ended up wanting to come with Muschamp instead of going with Kirby. And there's a lot to say about that. We know Shane Beamer was dying to get back to Columbia and Denton. Obviously ended up because Muschamp didn't offer him, and he ended up at Georgia. But they'll hang with Muschamp. It ended up being a great hire. It's amazing how things happen, how they work. But a great example, and you guys watch this, is that it seems kind of unfold. But a great when everybody said if Clemson offers or Trey Smith out of Wando, with his mom being a former athlete there at Clemson, it'd be a done deal. And I'm telling you right now, not so quick. I think the Carolina, they got staying power there, and I think they're actually going to end up getting the kid. But these guys just need to give him a little bit of time. If the quarterback plays good this year, then I can tell you right now, we'll be a decent team. You know, they could win, 7, 8, maybe even 9 games if they get the right breaks. But you give them a couple of years with this staff, and it's going to be a lot of fun in Columbia again.
All right, so thank you very much. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think, again, I don't think they're going to fail. I think they're going to build another solid program. Spurrier had a solid program. It kind of eroded from him there towards the end for obvious reasons. But I think here with a younger head coach and somebody whose hands are over everything going on in this program and kind of knows what he's doing, I foresee a very positive future. Relax on and off the field with Founders Federal Credit Union, located in the heart of Gamecock Country. Founders Russell House location is available to help you with all your financial needs. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. All right, final couple of minutes with you tonight here on Sports Talk. Let's check out some email. Hey, Corn, how about a shout-out to Coach Cribb of the mighty Latta Vikings regarding the awesome run his baseball program has been on. If they take the state again this year, we could be talking dynasty. Hear, hear. Latta Vikings.
A dynasty?
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, we had the annual Latta High School baseball reunion softball game. Did you watch it? It was on ESPN2 on Saturday afternoon.
No, but I was looking at the figures of the run of the sale on Liniment.
I have to say it. I don't like to brag, but I was really good. I was 2 for 3 and was robbed on the third hit, and 2 spectacular plays in the outfield. Flashback to days of greatness. Mary wants to know, should Will Muschamp continue the tradition of the pool bash? What do you think? The Turkish pool bash.
Turkish what? What are we doing?
Remember last year they had the pool?
Yeah.
The pool thing at USC, the pool party.
Right.
So she wants to know if he should continue that.
I call
it a Turkish.
Yeah, it was successful last year.
You ever been to a Turkish bath?
No. No, don't want to go either.
Will he? Should he? Probably. He had a cookout back in April and got a couple of commitments out of that. So, seeing Muschamp walking around in the Speedo, that might help attract a few more commitments, possibly.
I don't think so.
This is from Mike about USC basketball coach Frank Martin. In the record books for being our USC best coach, in spite of the way his team finished. Let's see. He asked Ray Tarrant to wait until after the season redo his contract. Ray and the Gamecock faithful want him back. The passion for the game he has and the commitment his team showed, in spite of being shorthanded, just shows how much his team loves him. And so do I. That's Mike in Buford saying that. I'm reading what Mike wrote there. That's kind of an old email, but I'm trying to get to these things. But I think he's right on. I think Martin really loves it in Columbia, loves the program he's got. I could see him finishing his career here. I really could. With the current administration, coaches' administrations change, their opinions change, but I could see him coaching out his days here unless when Larrañaga hangs it up at Miami, they make a strong pull for him because he does. If there's one place he might love more than Columbia, it's Miami.
But Miami is actually in Coral Gables, and I don't think if it was sitting in the city of Miami, yes. Now, I think it's versus a private school with resources versus a big state school with resources.
Well, we'll see if it ever comes to that kind of thing. All right. Thank you, Carson Nason. Great job. Thank you, Pro. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow night on Sports Talk.